Thanks for tuning into the Hidden Tracks podcast. You can find us wherever you find podcasts or listen to music. When you have an opportunity, please give us a 5-star review, write a little note, tell us how we're doing. We really appreciate it. It helps us keep this thing going. If you want to reach out to us, you can find us at Facebook at Hidden Tracks. Instagram is at HiddenTracks99, and if you'd like to send in submissions or talk to us or give us any feedback about what we're doing, our email is myhiddentracks99@gmail.com. Thank you so much again for tuning in, and I hope you enjoy the show.
Walked through the door and took my last breath. How would I know this would end in death? Oh, and I clutched, boy did I beg. I held the door, but my love, she would not wait. I know one day I'll say it to you. Maybe you were right. Right now, man, this on my soul. I will be whole. Oh, when I walk down to spit in the brunt, thought of my dreams and just what I'd become. So and I ran, you know I hid from the same. It'll take some time, I swear I will be okay. I know one day I'll say it to you. Maybe you were right. But now, man, this on my soul. I will be whole. Stare at the walls, I won't give you the day. Burn it all down, I won't hide from fate. Oh, and I'll sit down.
What's up, everybody? Another week, another edition of the show. This week, I'm excited to have someone who, it's funny how fast friends certain people can become, and I don't say it lightly when I say I love this guy. In a very short period of time, we've become like old buddies that never knew that we like really grew up with each other, even though we didn't. But that's just how it feels. And I'm always happy to see him, and I'm happy to have him on the show finally. So Tommy, welcome to the show, man.
Woohoo! Let's do it. I had an old friend, one of the best compliments I ever got, and the same goes for you, but I can't take full credit for it. It was a bunch of years ago when we used to play a lot down at the Court Tavern. And one of my buddies, who's similar to you and me, we immediately became fast-stead friends and all that stuff. And one day he's drunk and throws his arm around me, and he just goes, if we were in high school together, we'd be friends. And I was like, oh, that's a really deep, sincere way to say that. Yeah, we would have been friends if we were in high school together.
Yeah.
I feel the same way about you.
Yeah. No, and it's all, as I build my life and realize, everything that comes to me and all the people that come into my life, and it's all through music. And a lot of my friends that are still in my life to this day from 6 years old, it's, a lot of it had to do with music. And like the fact that there's so many ways you can meet strangers and become fast friends immediately through music. And like, it's genuine because you're usually in the same place at the same time, all for the same thing. So, you kind of have you have similarities. You also have differences, but those differences at that time don't matter. And then they really just never come up in a friendship. And that's why music's so fucking powerful, man.
I would completely agree. And even, if we go down a Crossroads or back in the day at the Court or even Autodidact and stuff like that, it's like, I've gone with old girlfriends or something and it's their first time out. And I'm like, I'm probably going to disappear for a little bit because I see a person I haven't seen for 6 months. And then we pick up right where we left off 6 months ago and talk about all that stuff. And, it's all based in what you're saying is on that music aspect of everything. It's a great thing to have. And to be honest with you, yeah, I go to most places in Jersey or go to most shows, I would say in Jersey, or at least in North Jersey, and at least know a couple people there. It's weirder when I don't know somebody there.
Yeah. It is one of those things where like all of a sudden, like I'll show up somewhere because there's live music and I'll be like, I'm definitely going to know somebody. And then like an hour into the show, I'm like, I can't believe I don't know anyone here. I got to make a new friend.
We can't have this. This doesn't happen.
Yeah, this is weird. I mean, the big thing for me now too, and you as well, I'm sure going to places and seeing someone wearing your T-shirt, like, is also one of those things where it's like, for me, recently in the past couple of years of just walking into a place, seeing someone with a T-shirt of mine on, and just going, "Holy shit, that person has my T-shirt on, and I don't know who they are."
Yeah,
like
yeah.
That's an awesome feeling too.
It's a lot like, like my 9 to 5 day job, I'm sure yours too, and all in music and everything else, is you don't always get the compliments. Like,
yeah.
I build websites for a living and I do them, have friends and family websites, have corporate websites, and it's few and far between that somebody comes back, even 3 months later and they go, getting a lot of positive feedback about this. And it's like, sometimes you have to fool yourself into remembering that people do care because you did sell those dozen shirts. So you did do what, like, oh, I wouldn't be in business or I wouldn't be in a band if it wasn't working, but you don't always get those compliments. So seeing something like a T-shirt is like a reaffirming, like, oh yeah, cool. Somebody does remember who the heck I am.
Yeah. And it's nice too. Like I had a moment recently. My niece works at a college, and someone came in, and they had a HiddenTrack shirt on, and she was like, "Hey, like, that's a really cool shirt." And the guy was like, "Yeah, no." He's like, "I met the owner there. He's so cool. It's such a great place. He's got great music." And she's like, "That's my uncle." And I was like, "Holy shit!" I'm like, man, who would have thought a fucking dollar and a dream would fucking take me somewhere,
turn into something like that? And it's good, not the bad ego, but it's a little bit good for your ego. It keeps you going.
Yeah.
If you didn't have that feedback, then you might be questioning what you're doing and why you're doing it.
Yeah, if we spend more time on the positive reviews than we do the negative, which is hard, like you can go pretty far, but the problem is, you take the negative, and when you put your heart into it, like, it really fucking hurts. So
those brutalize a little harder sometimes. I think we could all relate to that.
Yeah. Now, for how we became friends so much later on in life. It all started with a moment as a child when you heard music and it kindly for the first time made your ears stand up. Do you like have a moment as a small child, before your teen years and you found yourself like that moment where you heard something that was completely different than you ever heard before, that wasn't just even though I'm not going to throw shade to cartoon theme songs, there were some great ones, but like other than those cartoon theme songs and stuff, like music that was playing or something that you just all of a sudden as a kid was like, what is that?
I would say it's all about the emotion of it. So of course, us as kids, even aside from like cartoons and stuff, like my mom would have, the Phil Collins cassette or the Tracy Chapman's or the anything like that, and I would sing along. We all did Tears for Fears and Simply Red and all that other kind of stuff. And then I think that was the first time, like, singing along with something brought something into my soul that was like, this is fun. I like singing along with these bands that I've heard a million times in my mom's car. And I think that was really that moment for me where it was like, oh, this can make me feel like this. And you see, those cliche things in the memes of like universal language is music and blah, 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 blah. And it's a cliche for a reason. I think that's partially true, is even stuff that, I wouldn't necessarily listen to now. It was just like, no, I still had a connection with that at the time because it made me feel something singing along with it and even listening to it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I mean it is, and I've said it. Yeah, it's the universal language because you can go on tour to Japan and they don't speak a lick of English, but they're singing your American lyrics right back to you.
Yeah.
And like that's where like that universal language, but it makes them feel something, and it makes someone feel something. Like that's me. Like, as soon as I get goosebumps, like that's where I'm just like, all right. And I pity the people that doesn't happen to when they hear something and they don't like.
They don't
just
get
doesn't
it,
touch them.
connect.
Yeah, it doesn't connect. Like when people are like, "Yeah, no, I don't really listen to that much music." I'm like, "Wait, what?" Like
there was even one time, me and my buddy Mikey, we went to his brother's studio down by DC, and there was a band in there, and I was, we were talking about it, and all this. It was this Japanese band. I believe they were Japanese, and the brother was telling us that they love American music so much that their last record was just English sounds and consonants. And they recorded an entire record of gibberish, but just sounded like English. American English, I should say. So with the new album, what they had was they had a translator. So they wrote their own songs and then had a translator so they could actually do it without quote unquote faking it. And if that doesn't show you the power of music or how a style or something can't hit you and speak to you, I don't know what does.
Yeah. No, it's a great story. All right, so you're singing along to Phil Collins' Face Value, Tracy Chapman's debut album, Tears for Fears, song from the Big Chairs. I know what albums they definitely were in your mom's car. I can already see the cassette. So
I think every mother at that time had the same cassettes in their car.
So from that moment as a kid, and you kind of find that connection to music, what was like your next step? Was it, playing band in school? Because when I went to school, it was kind of required at first. Wasn't like the elective thing that you could choose to do. Everybody had to do it, which I think is a detriment in society nowadays that people don't have that. But like, did you go to band and then continue to elevate your musical life that way?
When I was a kid, I actually played trumpet for years and years and years. But it was first chair. I guess I was pretty good, et cetera, et cetera. By the time I got to 8th grade, I used to put my fingerings above the notes so I could remember. And apparently I would quote unquote slay it, but I never learned how to read music. So the music teacher was like, you need to start learning how to read notes in a staff. And I never did. And then he pushed me back to 3rd chair. So I did play music for a while when I was a kid. And to be honest with you, when I was a kid, I have 20 something cousins, and they were a big influence. Most of them are a year or two older than me. And I was actually, from, 9 to 13 years old, I was a hip hop kid through and through. As most of the music that I listened to. And at that time it was, even before Chronic, it was a little the Run DMC, BC Boys and stuff like that. Like I just caught the end of that cusp, but then, Tribe Called Quest came out,
They
you know, at De La, Cypress
yeah.
Hill, like all that stuff.
Yeah.
So for years, I was a hip hop kid. And then it was one of my buddies who ended up
Jankos with chain and fucking starter
exactly.
jacket. Hip hop kid.
Yep.
Nice.
Maybe I might have owned a cross color or two back in the day. So as time, went on, I met who ended up becoming, one of my best friends to this day. I still go over his mother's house for dinner every other week. And he used to make fun of me for liking hip hop. At that time, you used the W word. I don't know if you could say that anymore. I don't even know, but all that stuff. It was 92 or whenever it was. Different time. And one day, I was down at his house. He lived right around the corner from me, and he put the Mighty Mighty Boss Tones, Ska Core, The Devil and More, and the Clash's Story of the Clash Volume 1, which was a double cassette, gave me those 2 tapes. And that's when I kind of made the transition, we'll say, to punk rock, because I listened to those and I was just like, what the heck is this? I've never heard anything so angry. And of course, at that time, I'm starting to get hair under my armpits and everything and getting angry at the world.
Yeah, you're getting some juice
hating
flowing.
everybody.
Yeah.
So that spoke to me a lot more. And through the years, as I grew older, I'm going to fast forward a little bit and then we'll come back. But, then for a bunch of years, I was a ska kid through and through. I loved the post-hardcore. I loved Sensefield and the Promise Ring and all that stuff. But yeah, the Slackers and the early Toasters and all that stuff. And as these things evolved and as I evolved, it's your formative years of being a teen is like, I cursed off hip hop for a while because I was a punk rock kid, and you can't be a punk rock kid and listen to hip hop and, all that stuff. Or, oh, you're a ska kid, so you can't listen to this or this, that, and the other thing. And, as I hit my 20s, I realized, bands like, even in college, like bands like Folly, who were never apologetic about putting hardcore riffs and ska riffs together.
Yeah.
Just like, we like both, suck it. Was kind of like, that kind of ideas, I think, as I got older, was like, oh, you're allowed to love all this stuff together. And so then at that point is, I think, when you kind of become a better musician or a better listener of music or appreciator of music, because you hear different influences from different things. And that's what makes any great music, I think, that's ever come out, is a melting pot of different styles.
Well, I think that's what also makes, like, I love talking to bands sometimes and finding out that, like, everyone in the band has their own, like, go-to music that they listen to, and when it's completely different than everybody else, I'm like, that usually makes the best band, because they all have pulling different influences from to create their own thing, as opposed to having a band where you got 4 guys in the band, they don't listen to anything but punk and they make punk music. It's just all going to sound exactly the same.
You want that weird, you want that soul in there. You want a little bit, I always go back to the Bad Brains of, I remember years ago, when me and Rob Carducci were in a band called Communication Red Light, and we sat down, we were watching the American Hardcore documentary, the DVD. And I said, all the bands that they were highlighting, I looked at them and I go, every band that they're talking about who are now, gods of punk rock and the guys that started everything or influenced so many bands, look at Fishbone's a great example too, is I'm like, none of them cared what influences came through their music. Bad Brains heard Ramones, thought it was amazing, but wanted to play it twice as fast. And then threw reggae songs in there.
Yeah.
Like, they did not care. Were they worried about how many followers or how many listeners or how many ever of whatevers there are? No, they did what they wanted to do at that time. And, there's certain bands like, if you look at the I think it's Gold Country from The Sword or something, that band that puts out that one record that's weird.
Yeah.
And when I was a kid, it would be like, oh, they changed all that other stuff. And now it's like, they're trying something new.
Yeah, and they're allowed to. They earn the right.
Let them have this record. Even if you don't love it, or, a bunch of those, like, years later, you grow to love and be like, man, it's been 20 years. I finally understand what they were going for.
Like those moments too, though. Like I think what gives bands truly notoriety and staying power, right, is, you mentioned Bad Brains, but someone who took influence from something else, made it their own, and made it completely different from their influence. But the fact that it was different, when a Bad Brains song comes on.
Yeah.
Like you can tell as soon as it starts. And I think for so many bands like that we do know in this day and age, and we can run down a list of bands, they made their own sound off of their influences, but immediately who they are. And when you hear their influences too, immediately who that band is as well. And it's just, I love that moment where as soon as I can hear like the first note of a song, I'm like, oh, I know who this is. Like my wife was yelling at me she's like, you are either extremely stupid or extremely smart, and I can't figure out the two of them, because we did this like music trivia thing, and they play a couple notes at the beginning.
Yeah.
We did 100 of them. I went 97 for 100 with knowing the name of the band and the song name. And she's just like, this is ridiculous. And she's like, I can't believe the one you messed up. I'm like, everyone is going to mix up Kansas and Toto. They're the same band. I apologize. I knew the name of the song, and I said it was Kansas, but it was Toto. And I'm like, yes, I apologize at it.
Yeah. And I would even argue that's what makes them have that unique sound. Like, as fast as I keep going back to the bad brains, but I'm trying to think of another one and I can't. But any of those bands, the reason why they sound unique is because they're bringing in those things. Or, you can make some arguments of a producer or somebody forming somebody's sound, but ultimately that's their sound. You look at what, I remember when 59 Sound came out from Gaslight with a pretty unique sound at that time in 2008. And within 2 years, if you were to look up magazines or online of like, hey, here's a new band coming out, they sound like Gaslight Anthem. And you knew exactly what that sound was the second what do they call it in the magazine? Sounds for fans of?
Yeah.
FFO? Yeah. Like, as soon as you saw that Gaslight, you're like, cool, I have an idea of what this band sounds like. They're, to me, a great example of like, was confident enough to get that sound on 59 Sound, and for that Jersey punk rock scene from 2008 even till now, like, defines a subgenre of punk rock in it.
Yeah, I mean, and the way, the callback to that album, like it's a perfect album, and the way that Fallon had like, hey, we're recording the album in the order that it's done, and that's the order it's going to be in. And you have Joe from side one or whatever being like, well, no, that's not how this works, but I'll let you pretend like you're going to do what you're going to do. And then it was done, and side one was just like, holy shit, he did it.
He pulled it off.
Yeah. He's like, I've never seen that happen before. There's always some kind of like, we're going to change something. And he's like, no, this is the order and the way the album's going to go. Like, that's how, like, those are the moments too, where it's like, that's why it's a perfect album.
Yeah.
Because it's just, someone had the idea. This is what I want it to sound like. This is what the songs are going to be. And they're going to last forever.
Yeah. And you have to do it without caring. I think that's the other big thing. Like, there needs to be a certain amount, like, years ago when communication started, it was me and Rob Carducci, and we did a bunch of acoustic songs. I was going through a divorce, so I was like, I need therapy. And that was it. Rob was like, I wrote a dozen songs, and I'm like, bring them over, we'll record them. I don't care. I just need to do something. And years before, when we got Brad Little, who's the drummer, I had met him when I was in college. He's a Sussex boy. We've kind of lived close to each other. We met each other a few times, but we grew closer in college, and we bonded over our love of Sensefield. And he's like, what's your, we're probably drinking one night in somebody's dorm room. And he's like, favorite band. And I was like, Sensefield. And he goes, nobody says Sensefield. And similar to me and you, Shane, like, we immediately were like, all right, I can fuck with this dude. And so years later, he was like, he was like, I've always liked your voice. I've always just want to be in a band with you. We were in college, all this other stuff. And I said, hey man, if it ever happens, like, you know, at that time we were in our 20s. There still is a shot of being a rock star, going on tour, you know, 200 days a year or whatever it was. And you know, I was like, we don't have to do that. Let's just make songs for our grandkids. I go, I don't care if we put them on a cassette tape and put them in a locker. Let's just make songs for our grandkids.
That's a great fucking attitude.
And that's what I mean when like you have to not care. Is it's, of course you're passionate about what you do and you care about what you do, but the overall of like, you know, there's an argument to be made for, if your art's your art, you know, where's the balance of where you're trying to get people to listen to your music and when you're not. And I think there is a balance there. I'm not a hard, you know, I could be too punk rock for my own good plenty of times. But I think there is a balance of like, hey, let's put them in this order because they're easier to digest compared to, or, hey, I want my guitar tone to sound like this, in the fact that I don't care if anybody likes it. This is what I want my guitar to sound like. And I think that balance sometimes, or, you know, even in the sense of like, let's just make music for our grandkids. And that's what, you know, that was a lot of communication. I was going through some stuff. Rob had a bunch of songs, and especially in the beginning, I feel like we did it throughout that band, but it was just like, we're doing what we want to do. And at that time, you know, because I started the Albatross, I started meeting all my heroes from when I was a kid, and I was never a New Brunswick kid growing up. You know, I live a little farther north, but it was a great way of like, we would have post hardcore weekends and have like Your Favorite Train Wreck with Jeff from Game Face and Popeye from Farside and, you know, Shades Apart and Fire Still Burns and all those bands. Like, no, let's get these bands back together. And for whatever reason, at that time, we hit a weird spot where people were kind of looking for that a little bit more. And so it was great because we were doing what we wanted to do. And it just coincided with like, let's bring back cool music that we liked when we were 16 years old. I don't know if anybody's going to listen to it. Bands will have fun. I get to play with somebody that I've been listening to since I was 15 years old. That'll be cool. And you know, 99.9% of those people are either friends now, or they were just as cool as I thought they were when I was 15. And I love that. That's, again, we have this revolving thing about music and all that other stuff. And that's what it's, you know, when Jeff played at the record shop, like, it's Jeff. He's just chill and has a good time.
Yeah. He's just the good dude that he is. Like, and that's always been like the interesting part for me too, of like doing this show and having opportunities to talk to people that I've admired for so many years, and finally getting to have a conversation with them, and me trying not to, you know, fanboy out, but also being nervous. And like, but within 3 minutes of just talking to him, it's like, oh, this is just an old friend and I enjoy their fucking music for my whole life. And now we're just talking like we've known each other forever. I was like, man, it's so fucking powerful. And I mean, knock on fucking wood, 300 episodes in, haven't had a dick yet, you know?
That's what you go for. I did a reunion blog years and years ago, and I would do these long form written interviews. It was right at the dawn of podcasts and stuff like that. And similar kind of mentality was, I would interview bands like John Bunch and Popeye and, you know, Marginal Man and Surge from Sam I Am, like all these people that I'd either met through music or wanted to meet. And in the beginning, the whole idea, and podcasts have made it easier, is I don't really want to do an interview. I want to have a cup of coffee with this person and see if they're as cool as I think they are. Like, it's all I want is a cup of coffee. I just want to have a cup of coffee. You don't know me well enough. Here's a good format where I could see how cool I think you really are, or how cool my mind thinks you are, we'll say.
And I think when they blow you away too by how like amazing they really are.
Yeah.
You know, when they blow your expectations out of the water, you know, for me, one was Popeye, and being able, and then, you know, receiving a voicemail the next day from him, of just the sincere voicemail after our conversation, that was like, holy shit, like, that's a real human being that I never would have expected to wake up to a voicemail like that. Like that
Yeah.
was like that made my world, and it's saved, and I've downloaded it, and I'm like, that's going like that's being buried in the grave with me. But those are the things too, where you have an opportunity and want to talk to people and see if they are, and then when they completely go above and beyond, when you're just some fucking, as I am, just some nobody from fucking North Jersey who loves music, like that to me is like, that's so powerful, and like it gives me like a year's worth of energy to like what I'm doing must have some sort of, you know, resonance with some people. So I
would agree. And that's what the whole like part of the family is between everybody, you know. Even you know, the past, I would say when Communication came out, and I'm not talking about my bands now, I'm talking about old stuff, but that was like 2009, I would say. And I would say, you know, most of the people that me and you know, mutual friends that we know, that all started in that.
Yeah.
And, you know, having that sense of community, which I had it as younger, but I've never had it this big. And again, we were talking about it, like go to any town in North Jersey or go to any show in North Jersey and just be like, cool. I know somebody here because of this random show I played in 2011 or whatever the case is.
It's just it's like that, you know, we use the word community a lot, but that it's also the comfortability of knowing that when you walk into a place that you already know it's comfortable, you feel like you're at home, like, and that's what's so awesome about it.
Yeah. And I can't even places I would have never expected, you know, like when we have shows down in Asbury Park, that's, you know, a set of friends down there that I know from down there who go to shows down there. I mean, it doesn't happen anymore, but like Trenton's Mill Hill is another example of like anytime we would go to play at Mill Hill or go to Mill Hill, we knew we were staying there till 3 a.m. and we have to sober up at some point. Like we're having a good time with our friends from Trenton who we don't see that often. So we got to make it worth it type of thing. And the punk rock flea market, you know, all that stuff that they're doing now is just like, it's just an extension of that, you know, punk rock or family community that we all have.
Yeah. We're just adults now that have, you know, we're still children with adult money, as I always like to say.
Yeah.
You know, my favorite line that I use all the time, if my wife's like says I'm being childish, I'm like, no. My favorite line ever was from God, how did I just forget his name? The ESPN guy who, you know, passed away from cancer, basketball coach, North Carolina State, whatever. But his line in his book was, he goes, I've tried to live my life childlike without being childish. And and I'm like, man, that's awesome. Like,
that's the core of it, I think. Yeah. He nailed it.
Yeah. I'm like, that's perfect.
Oh,
now you keep bringing up old bands. So let me try to get this question out of the way. Out of all the music you've released out into the world for other people to judge, if you were to meet a complete stranger and they said, play me one of your songs, they've never heard you before, and they say, play me one of your songs, Tommy, what one of your songs would you play for them?
It's a great question. So the asshole punk rock in me would go, what genre do you want? I would say amongst my favorites, like if we're going to take it back, we'll take it back to the first band. My first band, I was 15 years old. Brian Rotherbeck, who's in T.GUNN and the Semantics with me in Adventuring Party. We've been friends since then. Our buddy PK introduced us. We were in a punk ska band. Brian Fallon actually recorded our first cassette tape. That band, I would say it was a song called Love to Hate, which was our quote unquote hit from that band. It was a short-lived band. I think it was Rotherbeck's second band, but it was my first band.
What was the name of that first band?
Atomic Peter. It was ridiculous. We're all getting our feet wet, but we would book shows down at the Moose Lodge, all that stuff. We get it. This is going to turn into a 4-hour podcast if we keep going this way. So I would say that one from that.
No one's going to beat the longest one ever that I had to cut down to 4 hours to put out. So,
jeez.
but, yeah.
After that, I think I was 17 years old, and I met this gentleman named Jive the Universal, who was one of my musical soulmates. He's the one that taught me how to harmonize, taught me what a good melody was, taught me how to not be a brashy punk rock kid, but those bands like Texas or Sensefield, those post-hardcore bands that Knapsack, those post-hardcore bands that I loved, taught me how to use my voice as a, not to yell, but to actually sing like a human being. So, we were around forever. It was Jive Gunn situation. We actually did some hip hop stuff, which was just called Jive Gunn. That stuff was amazing. I would say from that, it would be a song called Cookie Jar. So at that point, I never learned how to play guitar until I was like 34, 35. So most of my career,
you could say, man, musical career.
Sounds so most of my musical journey has been singing. So that was Jive Gunn. After that is when I first met Rob Well, I knew Rob Carducci. A bunch of us, me, Rothenbeck, a bunch of us worked at Sam Goody in the Haggettstown Mall, which we treated like Empire Records at the time. And had a blast there. It was a great time. And I met Rob Carducci. He worked at the Marshalls in the Haggettstown Mall. And we met, and Rob Carducci is a year younger, a year or two younger than most of us. And turns out, you were talking about guessing the songs, somehow just like an amazing guitar player, like kind of kept to himself, would come see our bands play the shows at the Moose Lodge and all that stuff. And one day he picked up a guitar, and like everybody in the room's jaws dropped to the ground of like, how's this 17-year-old kid playing riffs like this? It's ridiculous. So we had a band called Advantage to Crush. And the first song, I think one or two of those songs we actually pulled over into Communication Red Light at some point, because it was me and Rob at the core of it. And that dude Jive, he played bass, and our buddy Jerome played drums. So I would say Engage, which turned into the song Advantage to Crush for Communication Red Light. So that was 2003-ish. We fast forward a tiny bit. At that point, I talked about having an ex-wife. I was engaged, blah, 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 all this stuff. Ended up not working out very shortly after we got married and owned a house and all that other stuff. And that's when Rob came back around, and it's just like, hey, I have a bunch of new songs. Whatever bands he was in were kind of either falling to the wayside, or, me and Rob are true. He's my musical life mate, we'll say. Kid can write any kind of riff. I can sing over it. And he, as far as I know, he likes everything I sing over the guitar parts he writes.
It's not what so he told me, but
I have a note here from Rob.
Speaking of Rob,
so we started Communication Red Light, and that it just started as acoustic stuff that turned into whatever. Eventually, we brought in Brad as a drummer. David Parker from, he worked at the Court Tavern at the time. Rob was playing a lot at the Court Tavern with the Royal Sons, and he was in a band called Delft, and et cetera, et cetera. So that's kind of how we got our foot in the door in New Brunswick, and especially at the Court Tavern with the old background. So that's when we met Diamond, Diamond number one. That's when we met Alf. That's when we met all these people and just started having a good time, staying in New Brunswick till 3 a.m. So we did that band. I would say my favorite one from that is 1013. which was a crazy song. Night Owl was like our quote unquote hit, but 1013 is always my favorite from that. Fast forward a little bit more. Communication ended. I did, because at that point I still wasn't playing guitar. I started a side project called Mace Montana, which is an acoustic project. All these people I met over the past 3-4 years with Communication, I would say, what song will your band not let you cover? Come over my house. Let's do an acoustic version of it. And this is around the time like Jared and the Scandals were coming up. I think Communication technically only played one show with them, but Jared since has become one of my good friends. Me and Rob had a knapsack cover that we did acoustic for Mace Montana. I was like, I'll just record and kind of engineer it, and I'll do some harmonies or whatever, the blah, 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 blah. And Jared Hart was one of the first people. He was still in college, recorded a Clean Sheets cover on his laptop and sent it over within like 2 days. And I'm like, homie is hungry. All right, here we go. Like, he is going for it. Like 2 days. Like, I just mentioned this weird project and he's like, here's a song already. So I think we did 2 back to back of like, it was Descendants and then it was Chain Gang by Sam Cooke. And so we did, I'm trying to find the rest of the songs real quick. 2 seconds. So we did that. That was Mace Montana. I think there's a total of about 30 songs on the Bandcamp and all that stuff. It's just an ongoing project. That was fun for a couple of years. And then I said, let me learn how to play guitar, even if it's 3-chord punk rock. My voice will carry it. I got a good voice. My voice will carry it. Nobody will notice I don't know how to play guitar. So that's when I started. It just ended up being T.GUNN, recorded an acoustic record, and I think it was 2007, almost 10 years ago now. Yeah. And then did that after a couple of years. That was also when the big acoustic thing happened because of like Frank Turner and Chuck Reagan and all that stuff. Like, it was, more popular then. It's kind of died down since, but love doing the acoustic stuff and learned how to play guitar and had a new hobby and, found a passion there where I didn't need anybody. I didn't need to go to 3 other guys and be like, dude, you didn't get back to me about this show on the blah, blah, blah. Like, I could just be like, yes, I will do that. And I will be there. Just, give me a couple beer tickets or whatever the case is. So we did that for a couple of years. I had a show I was booking for some friends out of town called Heat Map. Great band. They used to be called Raheem. Radio Raheem, then Raheem, and with a little bit of a different lineup. Now it's Heat Map. And so I tried to book a show up at the Clash Bar in Clifton. And this is the first time I tried to book a show in like 6 years. Every band kept falling off. At that time, Brian Rotherbeck lived a mile away from me. Our other buddy Jeff lived a mile. We were a mile triangle away from each other. And I looked at Brian one day and I said, could we just turn my acoustic stuff into full band? Me and Rotherbeck at that time had been playing together almost every weekend for a couple of years. I'm like, my songs, just play drums. Then we went up to my buddy Jeff and we were like, do you want to play bass? It's one show. We all live a mile from each other. It's not like we're driving 40 minutes for practice. Like, we could do it on a Tuesday after work type of thing.
Yeah.
So that at that point, T.GUNN and the Semantics formed, which was supposed to be just a one fill-in show because I couldn't get anybody, and I would rather practice with a bunch of friends and just play the show than keep beating my head against the wall and getting pissed off, getting frustrated at people. So we did that. A couple years later, and this brings us pretty much to the present day, is a couple years later, Rob was playing bass in a band. They kind of fell apart a little bit. Some of the members stayed, but they were looking for a singer, and they asked me to play, and that turned into what Died Out is. So Paul, who's in 300 million bands like Thief, Lesser Minds, Hundreds of AU, et cetera, mm-hmm. Plays very different style than what Rob plays and what I play. It's more California skate punk than it is this. And for me, I was like, oh, I'm breaking into a new genre. And it's an old classic story. I've said to a bunch of people a bunch of times is no matter how different you think it is, it's still your style. I remember people, friends who were putting out new records and they're like, this sounds nothing like anything I've ever done before. And you kind of listen to it passively as a listener and you're like, it's still your voice. It's still your guitar, your progressions that
Still you.
Yeah. Like, yes, it does sound different with a fine ear. And I understand. I do it too. I say Died Out's way different than anything I've ever done. And most people would be like, no, it's pretty much the same. Maybe you yell a little bit, you get a little raspier a little more often, whatever the case is. So that was the latest band that's happening. So right now it's still the solo stuff, T.GUNN and the Semantics, and then Died Out are the three main things. Whew.
Busy man.
Yeah.
But with so much going on, and I gotta say, when I see it perform, like it just seems like it's easy. Like it's like, all right, we're doing this again, and like how you said, how things have to we're coming together, and like, hey, let's just do this one off, and then it turns into something more, and it continues to grow. I mean, I think that also says a lot about the passion you have for wanting to do it, right? Because some people, you just get to that point where you're just like, oh man, like, am I just spinning my wheels? But you can see when you're playing, like, how much it means to you that people are there, and how much it means to you to be playing with a bunch of friends and just having fun at, the point where we are as adults. Like, this is still fucking important. Like, I gotta do this.
I think sometimes that I haven't found like that quote to say it, just like I want to have a cup of coffee with you or any of the other ones we've talked about so far. But, sometimes I have to remind myself that it is a hobby just to take some of that pressure off. So as busy as it gets and as time consuming as the bands can be and are sometimes, especially, I have a show with Semantics one week, the next week I have a show with Died Out. My brain like needs to do a mental switch between the two bands, and I have to think of one thing or the other. And it's, I think it's important because I part of me treats it like a hobby, not as a job. And again, that's not to, like, I've had drunk conversations with musician friends where they're like, dude, if you're calling it a hobby, you're not passionate about it. But to a certain, I'm paraphrasing. I'm kind of paraphrasing it.
I would say that's bullshit.
They're making good points, and like, oh, if you're not taking it that seriously, then, and that's where I'm like, that's where either I have to explain, and again, I haven't found that perfect quote for it of like, oh no, I put my heart and a soul in everything, and if I'm recording, I'm up for days thinking about, if I have a show, I'm up for days. I still get nervous. I still, make sure I do all these things, but it's just like, it's almost like a comfort blanket of like, if you call it a hobby, you'll get less stressed out.
Yeah. I mean, it's 1000% correct. Like I equate this show to it. We've had many opportunities to have sponsors and commercials, and I won't do it. And I won't do it simply for the fact that, like, listen, money's nice. We all need it. But at the same time, for me, the minute that, like, I have to do something for something that I love, like this podcast is a hobby. It's something that I love. It's something that I use to help musicians get their music spread out that no one ever heard them before. But the minute I take $1 for it is the minute it becomes a job. And the minute it becomes a job, I start to not want to do it. I start to, I got to do this. And like, hate that feeling.
And then you start resenting, and then it builds, and then all that stuff. Yeah.
And that's really like, I look at a lot of what I do under the umbrella, and it's like, I'm doing it because I love it. And if it was about the money, I wouldn't do it, because there's no money in what I do.
Yeah.
From the podcast, the record label, the store, the venue, there's no money in what I do, but I love it so much that it doesn't matter. But the minute like the money comes to play a part, that's when I start to resent it and be like, I don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah. I would agree with that. Or you have to start thinking about different things, like who your guests are going to be, to make sure, it's a cause and effect. if I get sponsors, then I got to get bigger people on the podcast so that they listen to the sponsors and the sponsors stick and then
And that's not the point of the show. Like the point of the show is to get
talk to
bands that
dummies
are
like me.
well, no, it's not that. It's to truly, if I believe in the music that's being created by someone, doesn't matter if you have fucking 1 follower or 10 million followers. I'm going to go to the 1 follower probably before I go to the 10 million followers, because I'm not looking for more followers. Enough people already know them. I want to help someone who's really good at what they're doing and creating and get them 1 new fan. Like that's the goal. That's our mission statement. Our goal is to get you 1 new fan today.
Yeah.
And you never knew who that 1 fan's going to be. So I'm not worried about that stuff because it's not important to me. It's the music's important. And when you have people who like, you just went down your list of credentials, right?
Yeah.
Of all the bands and things you've done. If we can get you 1 new fan somewhere over in Europe, you never know how that can start to turn things around for someone. And those are like this media that it is the podcasts in the world. Like it helps it, as opposed to, you know, the way we grew up, you were told what to listen to on Z100 and MTV. Like, and now you're told what to listen to by an algorithm. So either way, we're still cutting through the bullshit. And my goal is to try to cut through the bullshit to get someone who's talented, another fan somewhere that's never heard him before, that deserves to hear someone who's really good at what they do, like you are.
And that's, to me, I have a question for you, but to me, it's a cyclical thing. Like, you know, you met at least 2 of my nieces and we were talking about that. But when I go to dinner to my best friend's mom house every other week and I see those nieces and they're like, oh, so we just got into this band. And I'm like, wait, what? How did that happen? Or like even in 2009, like trying to bring back post-hardcore as a thing, everything kind of goes cyclical. So back in the day, I remember in like, you know, what did it start? 97 to 2000, there would be a giant debate over auto-tune before T-Pain took it over, before all that stuff of just auto-tune in general. And from that also came the debate of tape or digital. And I always kind of sat in between the two of them. And there was one article in a magazine called Tape Op that said, neither of them are good or bad. You're just doing 2 different things. And they said you wouldn't take a Corvette off-roading. So if analog recording is a Corvette, it's the fastest, it's the speediest, it's the most authentic, argument's sake. I don't know about cars. You wouldn't take it off-roading. You would take a quote unquote impractical off-road vehicle that doesn't get good gas mileage or doesn't blah, 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 but it's based on what it is. And especially in that time, I mean, I was 18, 19 at that time, it was kind of like, well, I'm able to record at my house. I can't afford thousands of dollars of equipment to record analog. Like it just doesn't make sense to me. I'm going to go learn Pro Tools. And because I'm doing, even at that time, dorm room recordings, this is perfect. I'm glad that this appears. So my question to you with that backstory is, now, you know, starting, you know, with mp3.com over the years, now we have all the streaming services and everything else, is the argument is that there's too much access to music. And so these good bands, the bands that could be touring or be the next Bad Brains or be the next whatever, are now falling under the radar because it's information overload.
You get lost. And people, you know, my thing always is people are, a lot of people don't like to work for something, right? Whether it's, you know, you don't want to grow your own tomatoes, you just want to go to the store and buy a tomato. You don't want to, you know, you're going to let the algorithm tell you what to listen to. You're not going to search for something to listen to. Like people don't like to work. They just like to be, things have to be easy in life. And, you know, I've tried to do this thing where it's like, if you just take, like, I'll try and show people like, hey, let's go to, what type of music do you like? What genre do you like? And I'm like, listen, there's this awesome site called Bandcamp, and you can pick out of 5,000 different subgenres to create and mix the music that you like to listen to. Like you can do emo, pop, shoegaze, hip hop
Yeah.
and put that into one filter, and then all of a sudden these bands are people who've created that music that you've never heard of before, and most people fucking haven't, will pop up and you can find your new thing. I go, and it only took you 2 seconds, but no one wants to take that 2 seconds. Like, I call people you're a 2-second lazy person. Like, the one step to make your life a little bit better, you're not willing to take because you think it takes too long, when we can sit here and I can time you and it takes 2 seconds.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think people are willing to work at it. So, and there's so much stuff out there. People can do whatever the fuck they want, put it out there, and it can find somewhere in its way to a playlist. And, you know, I think what's also hurting a lot of people too is, and I get it for social media stuff, but the singles game, we're a band, but, you know, I'll hear a song, like I'll search something out and it's like, you know, there's one track on Bandcamp or whatever. I'm like, all right. And then I hit music and then there's only one other track and they've been together for 2 years. And it's like, I'm not engaged, because that was a great song. And my line always is, anyone can write one great song.
Yeah.
Anyone can do that.
Do you think you're being, and I say this as I do this all the time, I'm not trying to say it insultingly, but do you think are you clinging? So this, the other thing is, we're getting to the age where we're being the old men who don't want to learn new tricks. And sometimes when I see trends like this, I'm going, are you just not getting it?
No,
because you're old and you're set in your ways.
I get it.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, like, I understand why certain things are being done, especially like people want to do a single every month. A lot of people don't want to put out an album because they feel the album comes out and then it's gone, then you're working towards another album 2 years later. So if you're throwing a single out, it keeps people engaged every time you throw it out, if they follow you. And that's always my thing. And I go, you just said the big word, if. Like, if someone hears one of your songs and you only have 2 singles out there, what is the likelihood that they're going to continue to follow you and wait for that next song? I go, so my thing is, if you're going to come out with something first, don't do a single, throw out fucking 6 songs, and then 6 months later start playing that singles game, because they're more likely to stay if you have a little bit more out than if you throw out a single, they fucking love it, and then they got to follow you, and you're not putting out another single for 3 months. They're not going to follow you anymore. They're not going to give a shit. I go, and I think that is the problem, because that is the attention span that we have as human beings, and especially in today's fucking screen world that everybody is looking at all the time. You're just not dialed in. And that's where, like, I still search out music constantly.
Yeah.
Like, that's what drives me. My thing is always playing something that someone's never heard before and being like, what the fuck is this? This is awesome.
Where did these assholes come from?
Yeah, exactly. Like, and that's, you know, that's the basis of what I do. It's like, I still get that enjoyment out of finding a new band. Yeah. Like, it's still, that drives me. I mean, I'm an old man who's discovering new music. Doesn't matter genre. Well, it does. I won't listen. Like, I'm not going to search out pop country music, but anything other than that, I'm still searching it out. Like, hey, who's the new fucking band that kind of sounds like the Smoking Popes, that are doing, you know, like these dope vocals with this punk music behind it, that the vocals don't match, but they make great music. Who else is doing something like that today? And I'm like, I'm out there searching for that band.
Yeah. I had a buddy that years ago kind of reminded me of this. And what I used to do when I was a kid is, so I got that Clash, Story of the Clash Volume 1. And I listened to that back and forth. And at that time, I also just had got Mighty Mighty Boss Tones. So I was like, well, this is ska core. All right, this is a version of ska, but they do the simmer down, like they do reggae ska tracks on it. And I remember listening to the Clash and like listening to Police and Thieves and going, well, is this reggae ska too? Because it doesn't sound anything like this other reggae ska that I listened to. And one thing that I did, especially when I was a kid, and I would say I still do it to a certain extent, is like, so I got that Clash, and then I would go, this wraps us around to the conversation we had in the beginning. I go, who influenced you? Because if you're putting out music like this, I wonder what the dude that influenced you sounds like. And then I would find out, you know, at that time I would find out about, you know, the first wave of ska, you know, in Jamaica, and like Desmond Decker and all that stuff. And I'm like, oh, this is something completely different. So from one artist, I would always go backwards and say, what got you to where you were? What are these weird styles that you're mixing? And Clash is actually a pretty good example of, like, you know, not all the records are complete bangers, but they definitely brought in different genres into white dude English music,
Yeah.
punk rock, to say the least. But you listen to the original Police and Thieves, or you listen to some of this stuff, and you're just like, oh, now where did you get this from? And then for me, like, I started learning about, Jamaican ska more. And that was when I was 15, well, everybody was, and there's nothing wrong with Less Than Jake or the Boss Tones or anything, but I was like, no, I'm getting into this weird stuff from 1962 right now. It sounds really, specials have a message to you, Rudy. Let me go check out who originally wrote that song. Let me, all that kind of stuff. And so I always worked backwards when I would find somebody.
Yeah, the history. I mean, the history of is important of, falling in love with the Stones and, then finding out about Muddy Waters, that kind of stuff.
Exactly.
Like doing all that. I'm all in on that all the time. And I mean, you're not going to have what you're listening to now without the history behind it. I mean,
so do you think this pendulum is going to swing where there are resources like this podcast, and like one of my buddies, Seth W, does this thing called Metal Bandcamp Gift Club. So you put in your birthday. Once a week, he sends out an email going, here's the wish list of these people who their birthday are. There's 368 items in their wish list. I'm looking at one of the more recent ones. And then he goes, or just get somebody a record that of a band you think they should know because this is their wish list. And so he has this whole, it's just based off email of, hey, we have 2 birthdays. Here's the 2 lists. Go buy them a record for $5.
Yeah, that's
like,
cool.
Great little idea, similar to this podcast and these other ways of doing it. And I wonder if the pendulum will swing where if you get these hyper focused things saying, hey, here's something you should check out, if that's going to make another trend because of the over saturation of music in general, because of these propagated playlists and all that other stuff.
Yeah.
What do you think?
So I really think it's going to be kind of like how we grew up, where it is, and it's how it still kind of is. Like I would consider what I do as like the zine that you would get at your local record store. Like I feel it's like that because you're making a community, you're giving suggestions, and when it comes to really hard fought and found music, like shit that I fell in love with that I would never have. I mean, there was no internet and there was no, like, it was tape sharing. It was watching a skate video and hearing a band and then going into your local record store and saying, hey, can you get me this? And then the guy behind the counter would say, oh, we'll try this. If you like that, you're probably going to like this. And I honestly don't think there's ever going to be this huge thing, the neural link of I can sit here and in my head go, oh, Tommy should hear this, and then all of a sudden it pops up on your playlist. Like, I don't think, unless you're sending people stuff, which is easier now than waiting for your friend and trading a CD or a cassette.
Mixtapes
like,
that went around to your whole group of friends.
Yeah, exactly.
Who has a mixtape now?
Now
I think Jimmy's got it. You got to go steal it from him.
Yeah. Now it's creating a public playlist and, sending it to someone and being like, hey, man, here, check out that playlist.
Yeah.
I think it's still only going to, I think it's just always going to be a peer-to-peer thing. Like, I really think it's going to be, I don't think it's ever going to be, you're going to find everything that's supposed to be in your life without a little bit of work or someone else showing you.
Yeah. And I would agree with that. And that's happened. Yeah. For all of us, that's happened countless amount of times.
Yeah.
Even older stuff where it's like, what was it? Last year, I'm a big Clutch fan. And I know I've heard it before, but drummer was over and he went, oh, I never thought about this, but like, oh, here's this Corrosion of Conformity record from 94. I didn't realize it has such later Clutch vibes. Like, not that anybody's ripping anybody off, but like, it's Southern riff rock.
Yeah.
And he plays it for me. And I look at him and I go, I'm kind of pissed at you that we've known each other for 20 years and you're just playing this for me now in 2015.
Well, again,
and I got
a band like that I mean, you would say had a little bit of, a run,
Yeah.
but at the same time, you kind of had to know, and like, I mean, I know you're talking about the album Deliverance, that was from
Yes.
'94,
Yeah.
and that album is like, that album's fucking unbelievable,
Front to back. Yeah.
and there's so much stuff that definitely, you listen to Clutch, you can hear that in there.
Yeah. And we've had other ones. Yeah. Me and Brad are the same kind of asshole sometimes where we actually, at this point, maybe it was 15 years ago when we were like in the middle of Communication Red Light, and we actually made each other mix CDs, because I typically, most of the shit I listen to is either from the 90s or early aughts. Like, it's kind of my wheelhouse. I like it. I can listen to Game Faces 3 to get ready every day for the rest of my life, and I'll be happy. Or Monroe Doctrine, or, Building, or whatever it is. And so he was like, let me make a mix. And I'll go, cool. I'll put some songs, stuff that I love that's weird, that maybe something will hit you. And I remember we had one where there's this band called Big Wreck that I love. They're not for everybody. They're barely for me, but I love their music.
They're not for everybody, and they're barely for me. I love that. That's a great fucking line.
And he goes, I mean, I'll actually defend it. Like, but it's, I'll get to the point. And then on his mix, it was one of the first times I heard Frank Turner back in the day. It was, first time I heard, God damn it, I'm falling apart. What's that band? I don't remember. Somebody's going to yell at me. But he put La Dispute on there. And that's usually not my thing. Talking over harder music, like the Me Without You's, like I all think they're brilliant bands, but it's just, I'm a singer by trade. I like people singing. It's just my opinion. I'm not knocking any of the bands. And I remember at the time, I think it was their first record or something, and it was still like the emo swoop era of things. Or maybe it was towards the end of it. And I forget who said it first, but he was like, oh, I kind of like that Big Wreck song. And I go, do not look them up on the internet. If you look them up on the internet, you're not going to want to listen to them anymore. I go, get into the record and then go look them up. And he said this at that time, because I'm a little too punk rock for my own good, was like, I wouldn't look up La Dispute until you like absorb the record. Because if you see them, it's not kind of what we, the look we want, that we prefer we're being dumb kids. We're being too punk rock for our own good. But I think that's another good point of like that idea of this music or the playlist or anything else, or, what Seth's doing with the gift club, or, and, you hop on there, you see a wish list and you're like, oh, this dude loves a ton of the same music that I have. What's in his wish list? Let me go check out these bands.
Yeah.
It's all that local thing. And granted, we're music lovers, we're, we'll say 50% of the population listens to music casually, or listens to the hits, or listens to whatever the case is. Because there's a big difference sometimes between those two also.
Without a doubt. I mean, that's some of my, like, one of the best things about the store is like watching someone come up to the counter with their selection of music and like just being like, well, what the fuck? Like, okay, let's go. Tell me a story about this, why you're getting this. And like, I love to have those little conversations, because it's like you're running the entire spectrum of styles of music right now. Is this all for you? And when they're like, yeah, I'm like, all right, let's go. Let's have a conversation. Like,
so if it's not busy, you'll do that with somebody?
Oh yeah. I'll be like, all right, tell me why you're buying this fucking Kenny Loggins and Messina album with Title Fight right behind it, with, fucking Nas record behind it. Like, listen, we need to have conversations, and we need to have these conversations now. And I love it, because I'm like, man, what's in their mind? Like, what else are they doing? What else are they looking for? Like, what else are they listening to, and that I didn't have here, that maybe I didn't hear of before? And I just always try to have those conversations, to have that connection of music. And it really is, because like, it's awesome. Like, someone the other day bought fucking, what was it? They bought the Viagra Boys and Norah Jones. And I'm like,
you're like, I want to hang out with you for some reason.
I'm like, these are both yours? They're like, yeah. They're like, I know it's weird. I go, no, it's not. It's not weird at all.
Yeah.
I go, I just like, I fuck with that shit. Like, that's awesome. Like there's no there's no shame, there's no nothing. It's like it's 100% completely both sides of the spectrum, and you're just like, yeah, no, I love it. Like you're gonna rock out the Viagra Boys, and then later on at night put on Norah Jones, and you're like, yeah, no, that all makes sense. Did I lose you?
I was on mute. Sorry.
Were you burping?
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
Same thing. Like Sade, like Into Dead Kennedys or something like that regularly happens in my household. Like, no, yeah, this is both ends. And we were talking about it way earlier in the podcast of like that's part of what makes it brilliant. Like, I didn't realize this. Also, the gentleman, there's a bunch of dudes that are doing that. Do you listen to that Rev podcast?
No.
They basically started at Rev 001, and every episode's a Rev release from 1 to whatever number they're on.
Okay. And they talk about it. Yeah, they did that. I know the guys who did the SST one like that.
Yeah. So like, yeah, we've been talking about them. Like Jeff's been on there, Mike's been on there, Popeye's been on there, et cetera, et cetera. And the one weird thing that I never knew, they were talking about Rochambeau. And I don't know if it should have been obvious, but that Far Side logo is taken from a Sade poster. That Far Side logo is some Sade poster from the 80s or 90s that they cut the letters out of and made it Far Side. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
Yeah. Weird.
Wow.
But awesome. Like,
yeah.
You guys know good music, even more than I thought you did.
Yeah, makes sense now.
Makes total sense.
Wow.
I'm not sure if you're supposed to talk about other podcasts on a podcast. Sorry if that was uncouth.
No, it doesn't matter. I don't make money from this anyway, so it doesn't really matter. It's us having some talks. All right, I'm gonna hit you with some rapid fire stuff real quick.
Shoot.
All right. Remember the last song you cried to?
Yes, it might have been Sade, actually.
Makes sense. Do you remember what you were listening to the day you got your freedom, aka the day you got your driver's license?
My 18th birthday. This was a weird connection I had with Alf. I know it's rapid fire.
If anybody knows us, nothing really is rapid fire.
The Moon My Saddle came out that week. I worked at Sam Goody. It had just come in as special order. Listened to that in the car on the way to go see Shades Apart, and my first time seeing X number 5. So yeah.
Yeah, so you do remember.
Because I remember talking about how good that record was. And at that time, before genres were blurred even more, like they were the country indie band back in the Chamberlain.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah, it's, for anybody who doesn't know, it's Chamberlain. We had Adam on the show years ago. But beautiful. I mean, they were another band that came out in like that emo era that were, it started out on Deep Elm. I believe their first was on Deep Elm. I mean, they came from punk rock, Split Lip, but it was like, what the fuck is this? This is unbelievable.
Back in the day, in those early days, even like somebody like Karate, they were the jazz band. They were still melding genres together where you're like, I'm not, being an impressionable teen who wants everybody like, am I supposed to like something like this? I don't know.
It's when something comes on and you're like, wait a minute, do I like this? And you question your own ability to know music at certain points when you're like,
I'll just like it. I don't know.
All right, you got 5 minutes left to live. Meteors crashing into the earth, and you can only listen to one song and one song only. What are you listening to?
Sensefield Building.
Wow. Boom. Wow. That was a counter hook, like real fast. Holy shit. All right. If they're unfortunate situation, your domicile is burning to the ground. All living things are out safe and sound, unharmed, and you get to run back into the house and grab one musical thing that means the most to you, whether it be memorabilia, instrument, something, the most musical thing that you're going to run back in and make sure you leave with.
I would say probably electric guitar.
All
yeah. Right. I'm going to go with that. The Riggenbacher.
Okay. Do you have a piece of music memorabilia, whether it be a shirt, record, poster?
I got posters all over my wall in my office from everywhere. I got a signs. One of my buddies was in tour in Australia and knows how much I love Maiden and got all of Iron Maiden to sign a shirt for me before he came back.
That's awesome.
Maybe that one. Yeah.
I mean, yeah,
It's like a glass case.
Yeah. A reason that I love you is the fact that you and I both have Iron Maiden fucking igloo coolers. So
yes. As we both see.
yeah. Doesn't everyone have one of these?
Yeah. I don't understand why they wouldn't.
Yeah, idiots. All right. What was the last album that you bought?
So a little bit longer story again. Back in the day, I think it was the first show that Atomic Peter like played out of town. We were supposed to play in East Stroudsburg, and it took us 2 hours to get there because there was a rainstorm. And we ended up not being able to play because we were so late, or a snowstorm. I'm sorry. And it was Gooseneck Records was the name of the label. They were putting on the show, and it was these dudes, Unmarked Cars, who in that area were like the jam. There was a bunch of other bands that played that were from that area. And one of them who was on Creep Records, see this dude, dreads, he's wearing like a full mechanic's uniform, band called Super Grub, who this is another, I'll ask you this question next, but one of the few times I've seen a band for the first time with knowing nothing for them, or maybe it was the first time for me, and my jaw was just on the ground for the entire set. Like, what is it? How does this exist? I don't understand anything. So Super Grub ended up, at first it was Chuck Treese and this dude, Ben Kenny. Ben Kenny's gone on to did Super Grub for a super long time. Division Group, was in The Roots, was in Incubus, all this other stuff. Through this whole time, he's been putting solo records out every so often. I think it was maybe 3 or 4 years ago. You know, I don't know if it's exactly the same, but similar to Bill Stevenson, got a brain tumor and hasn't put out music for a number of years. And last year he put out a record called Powerful Butt Cheeks, which is to me a true, like, it's a lot of stuff like influence from Super Grub era, like a lot of really weird fun. You want to talk about mixing genres on a record? He'll go from a D-Gent Deftones riff to a Metallica riff to piano driven hip hop to like, it's not hip hop, but that, you know, music style.
Yeah.
Through on the whole record. It's an amazing record. So yeah, Ben Kenny's Powerful Butt Cheeks.
Nice.
Long answer. Oh, so do you have more rapid fires?
Well, no, if you want to ask a question, you can.
Do you have a band that you never necessarily heard of, whatever the case was, went to a show, randomly saw a band, and you're like, I need to buy everything they have at their table, right? Your jaw was on the ground for the whole set.
So, yeah, I mean, it happened on fucking Saturday, and they didn't have anything for sale. So, but that band Bad Boys.
Yeah.
I was just like, what the fuck is going on right now? I didn't know who they were. I knew everybody else on the fucking show, and I was like, didn't know who they were. And I was just like, fuck, they're amazing. Like, what is transpiring? Like, it had like this, you know, like all sound to it.
Yeah.
And I was just like, holy shit. I mean, but the last time that happened with an artist that I was able to purchase stuff, and I actually moved people out of the line because they were going to someone else, and this person opened the show.
Yeah.
Her name's May Krell. She opened for this Australian artist by the name of Harrison Storm, who I had happened to be there for. But it was one of those moments where the show's over. There's 2 people with 2 merch tables, but the line is blocking both because everybody wants to meet Harrison. And I already knew him, and I didn't need to say hello anymore or goodbye. And I was like, are you guys waiting in line for May? And she's just standing back there and they're like, no. I go, well, you need to get the fuck out of the way. And then,
elbowing through people and shit.
Yeah. And I'm like, I just go up to her and I was just like, so I was here, you know, I was on Harrison's guest list, so I was here for him. But turns out I was actually here for you. Because what you did was absolutely fucking amazing. I just kept thinking about what you had just done, even when Harrison was playing. I said, so here's what needs to happen. All this stuff you have here at your merch table, CD, vinyl, t-shirt, candle, I need it all. I just want it all, because you need to continue to do that. And then, you know, it's those moments where it's like, and then I got her to come out and play the store, and I got to do it all over again. But like, those are the moments where, like, when I'm blown away, I make sure I fucking tell the person how amazing it was. Like, and I don't just walk up, hey, great show. Like a lot of people, that's what people think you're supposed to just say to somebody. I just say thank you, because what you just gave me was one of the most amazing things that I didn't know I needed tonight. So thank you for it. And I'm like, that's what you really got to tell people. If it really means that much to you, just be sincere. Stop saying great fucking show.
Yeah. We were talking about that on Saturday. We were talking about it earlier in the podcast too, of just like never get, not always getting that feedback back from people. And it's like, even if it's as simple as, a lesson I learned years and years ago, I don't remember necessarily who did it, unless it's part of that Ian Mackay story, but I think it comes from before that, is whenever somebody like randomly comes up to me after a show and says, hey man, like, great job, I really like blah, 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 whatever they liked about it, I always ask them their name.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, you just got the balls to come up to me and tell me you liked what I did. Whether I thought it was good or not is irrelevant. But yeah, I should have, and it's not an insincere thing, but it's like, tell me who you are too.
Yeah. No, that's Ronnie James Dio, man. That's it. That's like, if you have you ever seen his documentary they did on him posthumously?
Mm-mm.
It is, every story that came out about him from people was like, yeah, he was doing a meet and greet. I met him. I was, told him the story. I was going through this thing with my dad was sick. And he goes, I told him my name, told him everything. He goes, I saw Ronnie James Dio 5 years later, just walked up to him, said hello. And he looked at me and he was like, hey, John, how are you? How did things work out with your father? I've been thinking about you.
Oh, dude, that's the sweetest shit I've
Like,
ever heard in my life.
Yeah. Like the stories were like bountiful of how many times like he would ask everyone their name, and he would try to pull something from you to remember you by. So if he ever saw you again, he had to listen. He's a New York boy, so he's got this thing of wanting to know people, like, and hey, let's stop for 2 seconds, and he, like, the stories just were over and over again. And I was like, man, I didn't know fucking Dio was that dope of a human being. And it just went so far down of how many people just were just like, yeah, no, I met him once he was getting into a car. I said hello. He asked me my name. I saw him, 10 years later, and he's like, are you Jackie? Like, and everyone's like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
But that's,
and that works both ways. And that's what's great. I mean, about all music, whether we're talking about like superstars like T Swift or somebody like us, it's that idea of we're all human beings. So it works both ways. When you were talking about, meeting Popeye and getting that voicemail from Popeye compared to, somebody that thinks I'm good, like, it's all the same, and we're all here, and we're all here because of that, at the core of it, the music community, I'll say punk rock community, but the music community as a whole is what drives us, because we're already, there's so many times when you hear stories of people going like, well, bigger people, not me at all, but bigger people, like, and I've done this and I'm happy to admit it. Like, this is why the reason why I want a cup of coffee is because your music speaks to me, that I feel like we would be friends in high school.
Yeah.
Because you're singing about some weird stuff that I didn't think anybody else felt. And whether that's Taylor Swift or Chuck Reagan or, Tim Barry or whomever it is, those connections are what makes the connections important to everybody.
Well,
and on either side, having that cool person vibe on either side is what makes it.
Well, you just did what we call in the biz a perfect circling back to the beginning so we can come to an end. So I'm going to end it here in a minute before we get to our weekly 3 segment of the show, which is our final segment. But I mean, way to circle back, bud. Like, that was, we'd be friends in high school. That was a great way to start it and end. But before we move on to the final segment of the show, I'd love nothing more than to give you an open opportunity here, how to tell everybody how it is they can find what T.GUNN has done and is doing and moving forward. So, the new fan we're going to get you in, I'm going to call out today. Your new fan will be in Finland, how they can find your
Sweet.
stuff and follow what you're doing.
Do you have a name guess too, or no?
No, just I think that's where it'll be. And I'll check when it downloads, like where it downloaded from. So
I would say the easiest thing is all this stuff compiled from Died Out to T.GUNN and the Semantics to the acoustic stuff to Mace Montana, all that other stuff can all be found at gunston.bandcamp.com. 2 N's GUNNSTON.bandcamp.com.
nice. All right. Well, we're in our weekly 3 segment. It is 3 things you're listening to right now that you would like people to check out. You give 3, and then I give my 3 for the week.
Damn, son. What did I listen to? I was outside all day yesterday because we had 70-degree weather. I listened to Leon Bridges.
Nice.
I listened to Cabin in the Sky by De La Soul and Clutch's side instrumental group, the Bakerton Group.
Wow. That was good. That was fat. Man, you were fucking quick on this stuff.
What about you?
All right. So my 3 for this week. My first one is a band called Finding Better Health. They're an Australian, I don't know, genre emo band. Let's go with that.
Mm-hmm.
Number 2 is a band called Between Bodies. They have an album called a song right now that I've been rocking. They got a bunch of stuff out there, but and I love it all. But the song, I listened to it 5 times in a row, so I know it's good. The song is called Waves. They're a German punk band.
All right.
And last but not least is a band by the name of Deer Fang. And they are, I'd say, grungy shoegaze, great female vocals out of Canada. Those are my 3.
Are they all, quick question, are they all newer bands or are any of them older bands?
They're newer bands. A lot of times let's see, the podcast yesterday was a lot of older bands because I was going through my CD collection and listening to stuff. And today was more going through Bandcamp, just listening to shit that I can find. And I was like, wow, I like this. And if I continue to listen to it, that means you got me hook, line, and sinker. So
love it.
But those are my 3 for this week. Tommy, thank you so goddamn much for being here. Thank you for
been an honor.
Yeah. Thank you for being a friend. Thank you for being cool as hell. I love you, man. Thank you for what it is you do. It's the music creation is not lost on me. Thank you again personally for playing our awesome benefit that we put on. It meant the world to me that you were there to perform, and we'll get you back out to the shop again soon to play. But thank you for everything, dude. I can't thank you enough.
And love you more.
Just love fest, people. It's a love fest show today. But everybody out there in the world, you know what time it is now. It's time to go out, listen to T.GUNN and the Semantics and everything else Tommy's done, and have a great fucking time.
It's been 2 nights and I need a range of my dividers when I can't escape. You asked for an answer, but I'm holding reasons I never could decide. And I wonder where you go. And I wonder where you'll stay. And I wonder where you'll go. And I wonder where you'll stay. September skies witnessed hope take a stand. And searching for the words to make things right. It's all yours for your heart to bleed. With broken thoughts and eyes open wide. And I wonder where you go. And I wonder where you'll stay. And I wonder where you go. And I know that you keep searching for the answers pending truth's desire. It's in your blood. But solace at in time you'll find her when it's written. Wisdom moves the page.
Thanks again for tuning into the Hidden Tracks podcast. We hope you enjoyed this week's show. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at HiddenTracks99. Also, send all your submissions myhiddentracks99@gmail.com. Tune in next week. You may find your new favorite band. And don't forget to go out and have a great fucking time.